A shocking case on why the conscience of our health workers matters so much. Former nurse Elizabeth Wettlaufer is charged with killing 8 seniors and 6 counts of attempted murder. We speak with an expert on why healthcare workers kill. Then the ongoing protest for conscience rights of doctors and the new law allowing medically assisted death. I'm Lorna Dueck.
And I'm Sheldon Neal.
You're watching Context Live.
We absolutely support conscience rights of individuals.
A controversial issue like few others, medically assisted dying. Shanaz Gokul, an advocate for medically assisted dying, speaks with Sheldon Neal on how she sees ending one's life as a personal choice. Then we look into a movement determined to protect the conscience rights of health workers. Dr. Ramona Caiello and nurse Helen McGee on why medically assisted dying and the legislation is raising an alarm over adverse effects on healthcare workers. As always, we want to hear from you. We're streaming live right now on YouTube and in a brand new way on Facebook. Tell us about it, Sheldon.
That is right, Lorna. It's called Second Screen. Hello to you and hello to you who are watching. It's happening now on Facebook. I'll be hosting this live stream from behind the scenes in the studio. Check us out during the show. Leave a comment. My dear friends, anything can happen.
Okay, Sheldon, thank you. And here are just some of the news stories that caught our attention this week. A Montreal man has been charged with second-degree murder in the death of his 60-year-old wife living with Alzheimer's. Michel Cadeau posted a cryptic message with details of the time of his wife's death on his Facebook page. Jocelyn Lizotte was found dead Monday in her long-term care facility where she was living. Lizotte's family had sought a doctor-assisted death but was refused. After her death, her husband posted that he cracked. And the man accused in last month's deadly mosque shooting in Quebec City made a brief court appearance this week. The case has been set to resume on March 30th. 27-year-old Alexandre Bissonnette is accused of shooting 6 Muslim men as they prayed peacefully together. Bissonnette also faces 5 attempted murder charges. And former North Texas neurosurgeon Christopher Duntsch has been sentenced to life in prison for a series of spinal surgeries he performed that maimed his patients.
This is unprecedented. No one has ever prosecuted a doctor for surgeries gone wrong.
32 patients were involved, 2 were killed and 2 paralyzed. Duntsch performed the spinal surgeries at 4 different Texas area hospitals. The landmark case was decided by the jury in 4 hours. Well, this is an issue our next guest is an expert on. Joining us from Los Angeles, Beatrice Croft Yorker, Professor Emerita of Nursing and Criminal Justice at California State. Beatrice co-authored the groundbreaking study, Doctors, Nurses, and Nurses' Aides Who Kill. Welcome, Beatrice.
Thank you.
They're calling Dr. Christopher Duntsch, the neurosurgeon we just heard about in the news, Dr. Death. Is this an unprecedented case, as the media is calling it?
I think it is. And he's a little different from the doctors, nurses, and nurses' aides in our study. He's different in that he has not been prosecuted for serial murder. He's different in that he seems to be criminally negligent, a terrible neurosurgeon who had no qualms about operating negligently. It seemed clear from other surgeons that either operated with him or the results of his surgery that he didn't care that his practice was terribly sloppy. That's different from the doctors who were prosecuted for serial murder. In those cases, those doctors, nurses, and nurses' aides were intentionally causing cardiac or respiratory arrest that often resulted in death. And it was for the purpose of killing and causing an arrest.
Beatrice, you went very deep into studying Canada's story, the case of Susan Nellis, the nurse in the 80s at Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. What did you learn about that case?
Well, it fit the profile of the first 12 cases that I published in 1988, in that there was an epidemic of suspicious deaths and cardiac arrests in a specific patient care unit. In this case, it was a neonatal intensive care unit, a nursery at Sick Children's in Toronto. The Centers for Disease Control ultimately was called in to do an epidemiologic study of the possible causes of this sudden increase in baby deaths. Before the results of their study, unfortunately, law enforcement, in their zealousness, thinking that it might be a specific nurse, arrested Susan Nellis. And there were a lot of due process violations, and ultimately the Centers for Disease Control report concluded that another nurse had actually been present at more of the baby's deaths than Susan had been.
And she was
so Susan was, she was never formally prosecuted. She was ultimately let go because there wasn't even enough evidence for probable cause.
And now another case in Canada, Elizabeth Wetlaufer, who's been charged but not convicted. What do you have to say about this case? 8 seniors.
This is typical of the other 90 cases of nurses, mostly, who were prosecuted and most of them convicted of serial murder of patients in their care.
All right, we're going to be back with you later. We will find out more on the issue of what does it take to protect vulnerable people in the medical system. Stay with us, Beatrice. And now for more insight into the fallout of Canada's latest story on murder at the hands of a healthcare worker, Sheldon Neal.
Thank you so much, Lorna. I spoke with Jason Tucker, who serves as an associate pastor at Life Church in Woodstock, Ontario, on how a community copes when tragedy hits. I spoke with him earlier today. Pastor, your town has been hit with tragedy before. 2009, slaying of 8-year-old Victoria Stafford. Of course, there's been cases of suicide. Now this ongoing investigation surrounding Elizabeth Wetlaufer. In your estimates, how is the town coping?
Yesterday, I was talking to someone about this, and the exact words out of their mouth was, "That's old news." And so for some who are distanced from the actual event, they'd say just that, it's old news. There's other things that are occupying our mind. For those who are directly involved, like family, those who worked with her, who feel betrayed, employers, those who are investigating on it right now, they're all going to have a very different view on it. This is where the church should step in, or could step in, because the church is in a unique position because we have categories for things like sin and suffering, hope, forgiveness, justice, and restoration, which the world doesn't have to offer. And so those who are still in the midst of it, my hope would be that the church would step up and be able to speak to those situations.
As a reverend, as an associate pastor where you serve, what's in your frame of mind as you stand before congregants who are part of this wider community, who in some ways, or not as you had explained, have been touched by this?
Those who are related at a distance, my reminder to them is that, just like you said, this isn't over. And for some, this is a raw wound. And we have to stand in the gap for these people, weep with those who are weeping, rejoice with those who are rejoicing.
I'm wondering, how does the message of Jesus, wrapped in hope, peace, love, restoration, really shine bright among a community when tragedy strikes?
Here's the reality of it, is the gospel of Jesus Christ gives us an understanding of why things happen, but then produce a hope for the future. And here's the other cool thing is that there are many local expressions of the church, and we don't have to just be one church doing it, but we can be one body in a local community doing it together.
Pastor Jason Tucker, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
That was Pastor Jason Tucker, Associate Pastor at the Life Church. He joined me from Woodstock, Ontario.
Coming up, we continue our conversation with Beatrice Crofts Yorker, co-author of the study Doctors, Nurses, and Nurses' Aides Who Kill.
You want to be able to say, well, I want to live the best life as long as I can until I can't any longer.
And medically assisted dying. Sheldon Neal speaks with the CEO of Dying with Dignity Canada, who says choosing medically assisted dying is a person's last fundamental human right.
Dreams do come true. PureFlix Canada is now available on a device near you. With over 3,500 faith and family titles, there is something for everyone. Start your free 1-month trial today at pureflix.com.
I'm Molly Thomas in northern Somalia. Think back to 2011 and the famine that wiped out more than 250,000 people in the Horn of Africa. Locals here tell us this one is worse. We'll tell you why.
Back with me now is Beatrice Crofts Yorker, the Professor Emerita of Nursing and Criminal Justice at California State. Beatrice, you studied this. What measures are now being taken to help protect patients from rogue medical practitioners?
Well, there are a lot of measures that I'm seeing in the United States. We now have barcode matching between every dose of a drug and every nurse that administers drugs.
And is it accurate to say it's extremely difficult to mount a murder case when a patient dies in hospital?
It's very hard because patients are critically ill when they're hospitalized. They need acute care, and many people do die in a hospital or a nursing home. So we expect a certain amount of deaths. But one of the other things we do to protect patients is we have death reviews. We look at the typical number of patients who would die in a hospital or on a given unit. So if that increases, then that can arouse suspicion, and then we can really do an in-depth analysis.
Okay. I was shocked at how many studies you had done, how often this has been, and I know we have had nowhere near the numbers in Canada that you've had to study in the States. Would you say this is a phenomena in our society, or is this as rare as we all hope it really is?
It's extremely rare. However, starting in the 70s and going through the early 2000s, it is a phenomenon. It is now happening in other first world countries. Italy, Germany has had well over 15, Brussels, Brazil. So it's a phenomena because serial murder is very easy to commit when all you have to do is inject a few additional drops of medicine through a patient's intravenous line. So there are some people who have a propensity to create critical incidents are attracted to the healthcare field, and until recently have been fairly undeterred.
And what kinds of personalities are drawn to this? Thank you for the reminder. Our healthcare workers are great, but there is the rare cases, as your study has been so thorough on, and this tragedy that we're wrestling with in Canada now. What kind of personalities are drawn to become healthcare killers?
We have found that they've got personality disorders, certainly being a psychopath, some narcissistic, some borderline personality disorder, but these folks are chronic liars. They don't trust that people would like them for themselves, so they feel like they need to create huge dramas and critical incidents and sort of trick people into respecting them. And that also is a way to get their emotional needs met.
Okay, that was Beatrice Croft Yorker, who co-authored the groundbreaking study, Doctors, Nurses, and Nurses' Aides Who Kill. Thank you, Beatrice.
Thank you.
Okay, let's turn the corner here to something not so rare. Some Canadians are taking advantage of Canada's new legislation, which allows them to ask their doctors to kill them, medical assistance in dying. Sheldon, you've looked into it.
That I have. I spoke with the CEO of Dying with Dignity Canada about their approach to assisted dying and how understanding the idea of choice must be considered in a deeper way.
Well, I mean, it's certainly in this country, we know that Canadians, 85% of Canadians support the Supreme Court of Canada's decision in Carter for medical assistance in dying. And I think we could attribute that to a number of things. And perhaps one of them is that, you know, there has been so many advancements in medical science where people are able to live longer lives, which is a wonderful thing. But then that question comes up with, you know, how do you define the dignity in your life if you are able to live beyond, you know, what might have been accepted 100 or 150 years ago, and that you may have another additional 10, 20, or 30 years, even longer. That when you have those questions about dignity and compassion, that people more and more realize that they don't want to have to suffer intolerably. They've seen a loved one die that way. And I think that has a lot to do with the shift in culture and in the discussions in this country on assisted dying, and want to be able to say, well, you know, I want to live the best life as long as I can until I can't any longer. And I think that is at the crux of this movement.
As we look further into the nuances to assisted dying, is there limitations that need to be drawn on how far this takes us, the limitations that we can kind of build to this? What does that look like?
We're talking about medical assistance in dying, but where we disagree with the federal legislation are the parameters that they've put on the eligibility criteria. We support what the Supreme Court of Canada said in Carter, that if you are clearly consenting, in the Carter decision they talked about adults who have a grievous and irremediable medical condition for which there's no treatment that's acceptable to the person that causes enduring and intolerable suffering, you should be eligible for an assisted death. Now, that is not what we currently have in the federal legislation. We believe it's far too restrictive, and we believe that eligibility criteria is unconstitutional because it strays quite dramatically from the court's decision. However, where we do agree with the federal legislation and where we do agree with the court's decision is that this is part of a medical process. This is part of healthcare in this country.
Let's talk a little bit about the issues surrounding conscience rights around those who administer care. What are your thoughts on that issue that is highly under the spotlight right now?
We absolutely support conscience rights of individuals. So in this particular case, if you have a healthcare practitioner, a doctor, or a nurse practitioner who has a conscientious objection to providing an assisted death, of course we don't believe they should participate. However, we are talking, though, about a group of people who, if they're eligible for an assisted death, may be indeed very physically frail, vulnerable, and incredibly fragile. They may not be able to pick up a phone for themselves. So at the very least, we support the effective referral guidelines that the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Ontario has in their policies for doctors, where if you conscientiously object, that absolutely is your right. If a patient comes to you with questions, you have to let them know about your conscientious objection and that it's a personal objection, not a clinical one. And then you have to help them find another physician or nurse practitioner who's able to answer their questions and who will be able to assess and possibly provide that service if they are indeed eligible.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for coming in and covering this today.
Okay, Sheldon, you had some tough questions there. Yeah. You notice what she said. You've got to, the objecting healthcare provider has to refer. So we're going to have a doctor and a nurse coming on shortly who are having a big problem with that. Did you notice anything about language? We don't call this euthanasia anymore because the government has put that in the legislation. It's not called euthanasia, it's called medical assistance in dying, which in my day, we've always been helping each other with that anyway. It's quite an education, isn't it?
It very much is, Lorna. You know, I think she really had some good points, and she's an excellent speaker with great insights, but I wasn't sure if she really kind of looked at where the movement may be going down the road and the ramifications that might be included in that. I think this is an ongoing discussion, and the issue of choice, it's interesting where she enters the discussion. It's a moving target. We'll see how that goes. We did take it to the streets and ask Canadians what their thoughts were on such an explosive topic. Take a look at this.
If they're managing their time properly, if not, is there something that the place they're working for, is there something they can do to better accommodate them?
Why are there not a lot of doctors still being accepted into med school and working?
Well, I would love them to take a good rest, good holidays, because they work very well. And I'd like the government to give them more incentive so that they could work better and help us in the future.
After the break, we continue our look into medically assisted dying with Dr. Ramona Coelho and Nurse Helen McGee.
I'm Molly Thomas in northern Somalia. Think back to 2011 and the famine that wiped out more than 250,000 people in the Horn of Africa. Locals here tell us this one is worse. We'll tell you why.
On June 17, 2016, new federal legislation came into force, creating a framework for medically assisted dying in Canada. That's a new phrase for euthanasia. Under this legislation, if the eligibility criteria is met and the procedural safeguards are followed, doctor-assisted dying is now legal. And here to give us their perspective from the people working on the front lines are Dr. Ramona Coelho and Nurse Helen McGee. And ladies, thank you for being with me. The numbers are shockingly high to me. Helen, let's start with you. Are you surprised 800 people have already been killed under this new legislation?
It's not surprising. There's been a very strong push for people to have eligibility for this medically induced death. So no, I'm not surprised. I think the numbers will be high.
And Ramona, we just heard Dying with Dignity say there is conscience rights, but you have to refer. You are a doctor outraged that you have to refer. What's wrong with her definition of conscience rights?
So this idea of effective referral is participation. And when someone has a deep religious belief that this is evil, this is a wrong, that is enough participation with evil, it's too much. We feel that we can withdraw, let people access the legal system, but to be forced to be involved is really actually trampling our conscience rights. It's not conscience protection.
Okay, Helen, you're actually getting engaged because you think another chapter is opening up on conscience, and that is that mental illness is the next frontier. Also, minors, children under 18, being allowed to accept this. But you're concerned as a mental health nurse. Why?
Well, it takes me some time to establish a therapeutic relationship with someone, and if they're depressed about the impact of their illness, it takes me a long time to help them adjust to the illness. If I had to immediately refer someone for medically induced death, I wouldn't have the opportunity to do the healing work that's what I've dedicated my life to.
So this is a rushing and a trampling of.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Coelho, your conscience rights are rooted in your Christian faith.
Yes.
Why is this so important to your concept of your work and your God?
Well, I'll explain it by way of an example. And the point is that I feel that all people have equal value. So when an 18-year-old comes to me who's suicidal, I will try to protect them. I will try to hospitalize them. We will try to pursue how they can find meaning in life again. And when someone who might even be dying comes to me with a death wish, I explore that. We look for hope. In palliative care, we can offer all these wonderful things. In fact, in 10 years at the Montreal General Hospital, when I was in Montreal, we had one patient who had to be palliative sedated for pain control. So all these people have been able to find value in their lives. And I am never able to say that, no, you don't have value, I'm going to help you end your life. I can't go there because that absolutely tramples the basic idea that all people are equal in dignity and value.
All right. We've got an effect on communities, correct? Ramona? Or, I mean, Helen, we've got this affects the whole community of your caregiving.
Yes, I think what I anticipate if medically induced death happens in a community of patients that I work with, these are people that live together in boarding homes, they attend groups together, they have the same psychiatrist. If any one of them has death in this manner, it's going to affect the entire community.
All right. And no seeming relief from the College of Physicians and Surgeons in Ontario. Other provinces are giving these conscience rights.
Yes,
Why is yours not? Why is Ontario's not?
It seems to be a very difficult situation that we've come up with our own CPSO. Our own 21 physicians in the college voted that our duty to refer trumps our conscience protection. And they see that as a good for patient access. And every single other province, actually every other jurisdiction in the world, has conscience protection and a system in place to protect
Ontario.
people.
And you're fighting hard. Okay, we've got that on the website. Thank you both. Really important voices on this very serious issue. Thank you both for joining us. Sheldon, over to you on what's happening in social media on this topic.
Thank you so much, Lorna. Here's what's happening online and on social media. I'm going to bring it up on screen so you can see it. The hashtag assisted death trends on this topic. Let's look at this. Faith Today. In light of hashtag assisted death and need for palliative care, we need to know how to offer hope for the suffering. Let's keep it moving. From the rounds. Should an advance directive from a patient prevent accusations of physician-assisted death? Keep those questions coming, but for now, that is your online and social media update.
So what am I most asked about today's topic? It's this. Why am I opposed to an individual choosing suicide by a doctor or nurse? My answers lie in our complex conscience. For example, when aging people choose suicide, how does that affect grandchildren? In less than 8 months, we've had 800 Canadians ask their doctor to kill them. The Canadian Medical Association now warns that healthcare providers say there is a psychological toll from euthanasia. Realize only 1 in 10 applications are getting approved, so 800 have been approved. These are a lot of applications coming through. Conscience over what we do in dying well affects every health worker and family in Canada. And how we care for people who suffer at end of life matters to more people than just the one dying. Suffering and dying is an individual act, but the experience of death has been designed by God to touch others. So let's be careful about that deep ethic of love, care, and kindness that is only learned by walking through the valley of suffering together and caring for people. Great articles on this on the Context websites. Learn more about this from all of us at Context. Read deeply on it. I'm Lorna Duick.